I didn't plan on living past 40. Not after what happened. Not after I lost everything that ever mattered. I was holed up in a broken-down trailer in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in Utah where the wind howls like a dying man and the nights feel like punishment. The kind of place people go to disappear. And I had. Disappeared, I mean. From my family. My friends. Myself. That was the plan. Wake up. Drink. Sleep. Repeat. Until something finally took me, liver failure, a fire, or my own hand. But then he showed up. Matted fur. Cracked paws. Ribs visible through patchy skin. He looked like hell. Just like me. I found him digging through my trash one morning. At first, I yelled something sharp, something ugly, but he didn't flinch. Just looked at me. Stared into me like he saw something no one else had in years. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way he didn't beg. Maybe it was the way he didn't run. I threw him a piece of stale bread. He took it gently like it was a gift from God. Didn't bark. Didn't wag his tail. Just sat there, chewing slow, his eyes locked on mine. That was day 1. By day 3, he was sleeping on my porch. By day 7, he was inside, curled up at the foot of my stained old couch like he'd always been there. I called him Shadow. Not because he followed me, he didn't. He led me. Back to the land of the living. God, I didn't know how much I needed him. I didn't even know I was lonely until he filled the silence. When I cried, he laid his head on my lap. When I drank too much, he nudged the bottle away. When I screamed at the empty walls, he never left the room. He became my heartbeat. And I became his world. But just when I started to believe life might be worth something again, just when I let myself hope, the past came knocking. And Shadow? He paid the price. It started with a letter. No return address. Just my name, Ethan Rhodes, scrawled in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, heart beating like I was holding a live grenade. I should have thrown it away. But I didn't. I tore it open with shaking fingers, and the first words hit me like a sucker punch to the chest. I know what you did. Just 6 words. No signature. No explanation. But they ripped something open inside me I'd buried for a decade. Shadow sensed it. He sat near my feet, ears perked, eyes never leaving my face. He didn't move when I dropped the letter. Didn't bark when I cursed and kicked the wall hard enough to crack the drywall. He just stayed with me, quiet, steady, solid. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a cigarette in my mouth and a bottle on the table. Shadow curled up next to me, head resting on my foot. The memories came back like waves crashing on a sinking ship. 10 years ago. My brother, Josh. The accident. God, that night? One wrong turn. One beer too many. One stupid decision that changed everything. He died. I didn't. And I've never forgiven myself for it. I left town after the funeral. Couldn't face my parents. Couldn't face the mirror. And now after all this time someone knew. Someone wanted me to remember. Shadow didn't care about my past. That's what made him different. That's what made him necessary. I told myself the letter was just some sick prank. But then the second one came. Then the third. Threats. Promises. Reminders. And then photos. One was of me sitting on the porch with Shadow. Another was of the trailer door. Closed. Locked. The last one? My truck. With slashed tires. I couldn't call the cops. I didn't even have a phone. I had nobody. Except him. Shadow was all I had left in this godforsaken world. So I made a decision. If someone was coming for me, if this was about revenge, I'd face it. But I'd protect him. At any cost. Even if it meant going back to where it all started. Even if it meant facing the people I'd sworn I'd never see again. I packed what little I had, loaded Shadow into the passenger seat of my busted-up Chevy and drove. Back to Benton, Colorado. The town I left in pieces. The town where ghosts still walk the streets. We rolled into Benton just after midnight. Nothing had changed. Same rusted gas station on the corner. Same flickering diner sign. Same small-town silence that used to feel comforting and now just felt like a warning. Shadow had his head out the window, ears twitching in the wind. He looked alert, like he sensed something too. He always did. I parked a few blocks from my parents' house. Didn't even know if they still lived there. I hadn't spoken to them in nearly a decade. Not since the funeral. Not since I stood in front of my mother, watched her eyes go dead, and heard her say, "You should have been the one in that coffin." She meant it. And I believed her. But I didn't come back for them. I came back for answers. And maybe for redemption. I slept in the truck that night. Or tried to. Shadow was curled up in the passenger seat, head resting on the armrest between us, his breath steady. He kept one eye open like he was guarding me from the world. Or maybe from myself. The next morning I drove to the cemetery. Josh's grave was on the east side under an old oak tree. I hadn't been there since the day they put him in the ground. The headstone was simple. Joshua Thomas Rhodes, 1986 to 2015. Beloved son, brother, friend. I knelt in front of it. My knees hit the wet earth. Shadow sat beside me, tail still, ears flat. I'm sorry, I whispered. The words felt too small. Too late. I should have died that night. Not you. The wind picked up. Leaves rustled. And for a second I swore I heard his laugh. That stupid, reckless laugh he had when we were kids. It gutted me. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Fresh flowers. Lilies. Still damp from the morning dew. Someone had been here recently. Someone who cared. Someone who might still be watching. I looked around. Empty. Just the wind. But I felt it. That same chill from the letters. That creeping sense that I was being hunted. Back in the truck, Shadow was pacing in the back seat. Something had him spooked. I turned the key. The engine didn't start. Tried again. Nothing. Just a weak cough and silence. Then I saw it on the windshield. Another note. Stuck under the wiper. Bold, black letters scrawled across lined notebook paper. You came back. Good. Now it's your turn to lose something. My hands went numb. I tore open the door, heart pounding, I scanning the street. But it was empty. Just me, Shadow, and a threat hanging in the air like smoke. He was coming for me. And I had no idea who he even was. But I knew this much. If he touched Shadow, if he laid one finger on the only soul that ever saved me, I'd tear the world apart to stop him. I pushed the truck until my legs burned and my hands bled. 2 miles down the road was the only mechanic shop in town, Dean's Garage. It looked the same as it did when I was 17, sneaking beers out back with Josh and lying to our folks about curfews and girls. Dean wasn't there, but his son Kyle was. He didn't recognize me at first. Just another ragged stranger with a busted truck and a beat-up mutt. But when I told him my name, his face changed. Jaw clenched. Eyes narrowed. I thought you were dead, he said flatly. Not yet, I replied. Shadow growled low. Not at Kyle, but at something else. Something behind the shop. I turned but saw nothing. Still, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Someone's messing with me, I told him. Cut my tires. Left notes. Kyle didn't seem surprised. Benton remembers, Ethan. People still talk about what happened. Especially him. Who? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a cigarette, lit it with shaking fingers, and stared off into the distance like he was weighing something heavy. Finally, he said, Zeke McAllister, ***. My stomach turned. Zeke had been Josh's best friend and my worst enemy. The guy hated my guts even before the accident. Thought I was a screw-up. A selfish drunk. He wasn't wrong. But after Josh died, Zeke lost it. Blamed me publicly. Got arrested for punching me at the funeral. And then vanished. I hadn't heard his name in years. You think it's him? I asked. Kyle shrugged. Word is he came back a while ago. Keeps to himself. Bought a cabin up by Rockridge. Nobody really sees him. That was all I needed. I took the truck into the garage and told Kyle to do what he could. Then I walked. Shadow at my side. We cut through the woods toward Rockridge. It was steep, full of brambles and deadfall, but Shadow didn't falter. He stuck close, ears up, alert. It was almost dark when we saw the cabin. Small. Isolated. Half covered in vines and brush. A single light on inside. I crouched low behind a tree. Shadow stayed still. Then I saw him. Zeke. 10 years older. Thinner. Hunched. But still carrying that same storm in his eyes. And he wasn't alone. He had something in his hands. A leash. A chain. And tied to the end of it, a dog. Not just any dog. My dog. Shadow. I looked down in horror, my shadow was still beside me. Then I looked again. It wasn't Shadow. But it looked just like him. Same eyes. Same build. Same scar above the left paw. No. It was Shadow. But how? I turned to the dog next to me. And in that moment I knew something was very, very wrong. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out of my chest. The dog beside me, my shadow, was staring straight ahead. Frozen. Not growling. Not moving. Just locked on the scene in front of us. Then he looked up at me. His eyes. God, those eyes. They were scared. Shadow was never scared. That's when I realized I had no idea who was standing beside me. I looked again at the cabin. The dog Zeke was dragging by the chain. He was limping, his fur caked with dried blood, a fresh gash above his eye. He looked beaten, broken, but even from that distance I knew that was my shadow, which meant the one beside me Wasn't. A chill shot down my spine. The imposter leaned closer. Too close. His breath hit my cheek like ice. And then he growled. Not a warning. A threat. I backed away slow, my hands trembling, every instinct in me screaming run. But I couldn't leave Shadow, not the real one. Not in that hellhole with a man like Zeke. Suddenly, the fake lunged, teeth out. I stumbled backward just in time, crashing down a slope behind me, hitting rocks, twigs snapping under my back. The fake dog didn't follow, just stood at the edge of the slope watching me fall. And then he turned, walked calmly toward the cabin, like he knew exactly where he was supposed to be, like he belonged. I don't know how long I lay there. My leg was cut, my shoulder screamed, but the fear numbed it all. That thing, whatever it was, had taken Shadow's place, and I had walked for miles beside it. I didn't know what the hell I was dealing with, but I knew where I was going next. Back to Zeke, back to that cabin. I crawled out of the ravine, limping, blood dripping down my shin. Every step burned. But I didn't stop. Couldn't. I was done running. Shadow had saved my life more times than I could count. Now it was my turn. I circled wide through the trees, staying low. The cabin was dark now. No lights, no movement. Then I saw him, Zeke, step outside. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Same nervous tick he always had. I waited until he turned his back. Then I ran. Straight through the brush. Through the door. And what I saw inside. I still have nightmares about it. Cages. Chains. Tools. Blood. And in the far corner, barely breathing, ribs heaving, was Shadow. My real Shadow. He looked up at me with tired eyes. And wagged his tail. Even now, even after all that, he still believed in me. I dropped to my knees. I'm here, boy, I whispered, choking on tears. I'm here. But we weren't safe yet, because Zeke was back in the doorway, holding a shotgun. Step away from the dog, Ethan. Zeke's voice was low, cold, too calm. The kind of calm that came right before someone did something unforgivable. I stood slowly, hands up, shielding Shadow behind me. My breath was ragged, but my mind raced. Zeke, I said, whatever this is, whatever you think I did, just talk to me. Talk? He laughed bitterly. You want to talk now? After 10 years of silence? After you killed my best friend and ran off like a coward? I swallowed hard. It wasn't just your best friend. He was my brother. Then why didn't you stay? Zeke snapped. Why didn't you pay for what you did? I did pay, I said through gritted teeth. Every day. I live with it. I live in it. I wanted to die with it. His eyes were wild now. His hands trembled around the shotgun. I lost everything, Ethan. You know that? Everything. And then you showed up again with that damn dog like nothing ever happened. Like you got a second chance. Well, I didn't. I looked at him carefully. That's not Shadow out there with you, is it? He tilted his head. You noticed. What the hell is it, Zeke? He smiled. A slow, twisted grin that made my skin crawl. Not what? Who? My stomach dropped. He walked to the corner of the cabin and pulled something from the shadows. A collar. Shadow's real collar. Worn leather. Bent metal tag. He was a gift, Zeke said, stroking the tag. From someone who understands loss like I do. Said if I wanted justice, I'd need help. Said he could give me a way to make you feel it. I stared at him. Who? I never got a name, he muttered. But he gave me the dog. Looked just like yours. Only smarter. Meaner. Like he knew everything about you. I shuddered. Where is he now? Zeke smiled wider. Gone. Said his job was done once the dog got inside your head. Inside my head. The fake Shadow. The way he stared. The way he mirrored my dog. How he led me straight into this. This wasn't just revenge. This was something darker. Something else entirely. I don't care what sick game this is, I said, stepping toward Zeke. You're not keeping him. Zeke raised the shotgun. Don't make me do this, Ethan. And then, Shadow moved. He launched forward, teeth bared. All fury and desperation. Straight for the shotgun. Straight for the man who took everything. There was a flash. A deafening blast. Smoke. Blood. Screams. And then, silence. I ran to him. Dropped to my knees. Shadow was on the ground. Chest heaving. Blood spreading beneath him like ink in water. No. No, 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 no. I pressed my hands to the wound. Stay with me, boy. Please. Stay. His eyes met mine. Still soft. Still trusting. Even as the light faded. Even as I broke apart. I turned to Zeke, who sat slumped in the corner, bleeding from his shoulder. Shocked. Silent. You don't get to win, I whispered. And I called for help. For the first time in a decade, I asked for help. Not just for me, but for the only soul who ever truly saved me. The hospital wouldn't take him. He's a dog, sir, the nurse said, avoiding my eyes like I was contagious. He's not just a dog, I snapped. He's my best friend. He took a bullet for me. She looked at the blood on my shirt, at the trembling in my hands, then at Shadow lying on the passenger seat, motionless except for the faint rise and fall of his chest. She softened. Just a little. There's a vet down the road, she said. 2 miles. Old brick building. They might still be open. I didn't wait. I peeled out of the lot like a mad ant, tires screaming against the pavement. I don't even remember the drive. Just the shaking. The prayers I didn't believe in. The way I kept talking to him the whole way like if I stopped, he would too. Hang in there, Shadow. Don't you dare leave me. Not after everything. Blood soaked the passenger seat. His breathing got thinner. Shallow. But his eyes, they never left mine. Not once. The vet's office was almost empty when I crashed through the doors, Shadow in my arms. The receptionist screamed. The vet, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and ink-stained scrubs, took one look and rushed us to the back. Gunshot wound. He's lost a lot of blood, she muttered, snapping on gloves. Name? Shadow, I said. No, yours. Ethan. Ethan Rhodes. She nodded. All right, Ethan. We're gonna do everything we can. I stood in that cold room for 5 hours. 5 hours of pacing, of whispering, of fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Every minute felt like a lifetime. Every sound made me jump. And then finally she came out. Blood on her arms. Mask pulled down around her neck. Her face was unreadable. I braced for the worst. He's a fighter, she said quietly. We stopped the bleeding. Bullet missed anything vital by an inch. I nearly collapsed. He'll need time. Rest. Medication. But he's gonna make it. I didn't cry when my brother died. Didn't cry when my parents disowned me. Didn't cry when I woke up every morning wanting to be dead. But I cried then. Right there in that damn vet office with my hands shaking and my knees buckling. Because for the first time in years, I hadn't lost. I brought Shadow home that night. Not the trailer. Not the cabin. Home. To the house I hadn't seen in 10 years. My parents' house. I didn't even knock. Just stood on the porch with Shadow in my arms. My father opened the door. He stared at me for a long time. Then said 3 words I never expected. Come inside, son. The smell hit me first. Cedar floors. Old books. Mom's lavender laundry detergent. Nothing had changed. Not the family photos on the walls. Not the chipped paint by the staircase. Not even the little ceramic angel by the front door, the one Josh and I broke as kids and glued back together with superglue and guilt. Shadow whimpered softly in my arms, his body heavy but alive. My dad stepped aside without a word. We didn't hug. Didn't need to. He just looked at Shadow, at the blood-soaked bandages, and his eyes, those hard, weather-worn eyes, shimmered. I'll get towels, he muttered and disappeared down the hall. I stood there, heart pounding, like I was 13 again and about to get grounded. But then I looked down at Shadow's face, at his slow blink, and I remembered why I came. Why I stayed. Mom appeared next. Gray hair, thinner than I remembered. A little hunched, like life had been resting too heavy on her shoulders for too long. She stopped in her tracks when she saw me. Her hand went to her mouth. Ethan, she whispered, like saying it louder might break the spell. Hi, Mom. She didn't speak. She just walked straight to me and put her arms around my back, careful not to crush Shadow. She smelled like mint tea and old grief. And forgiveness. We didn't talk much that night. They gave me Josh's old room still untouched. Posters on the wall. His baseball glove on the desk. A pile of dusty comic books beside the bed. I laid Shadow down on the mattress, tucked him in like a child. He licked my hand once. Then closed his eyes. And I sat there watching him breathe, whispering stories I used to tell when he was just a pup, shaking in my truck for the first time. Outside, a storm rolled in. Heavy rain. Distant thunder. But I felt calm. Like maybe the worst had passed. In the morning, I found my mom in the kitchen, making pancakes like she used to. Like no time had passed at all. She didn't ask for details. She didn't ask about Zeke. She just placed a plate in front of me and said, "Eat before it gets cold." I almost broke right there. But I didn't. Because I knew I had to be strong for Shadow. For them. For me. The next few days were slow. Healing. Breathing. Relearning what peace felt like. Shadow got stronger. He started walking again. Tail wagging. Eating small bites from my hand. Dad even built him a little ramp for the back porch. Said he needed fresh air. Mom knitted him a tiny sweater. He hated it. We laughed. It felt like life was giving me something back I never thought I deserved. But in the back of my mind, I still saw the other dog. The imposter. The one that wore Shadow's face. And I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Came back on the third night. I was asleep on the floor beside Shadow, my hand resting on his back, when he started to growl. Low, deep, feral. I sat up fast, heart already hammering before I even knew why. The room was dark, except for the soft moonlight leaking through the blinds. Shadow, he didn't look at me. He was staring at the window. Every hair on his back stood up like electricity had passed through him. Then I heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Long, slow claws against glass. I crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. Nothing. Just the trees. The wind. But Shadow was trembling now, like he felt something I couldn't see. Then, from the far edge of the yard, a shape. For legs. Low to the ground. Watching. It was him. The fake. The thing that wore my dog's face. He stood there in the dark like he belonged to it. Like it grew around him. Same build. Same stare. But the eyes. Those weren't Shadow's eyes. They were hollow, dead, and they were staring straight at me. I bolted outside, barefoot, flashlight in hand. "Hey!" I screamed. "I see you. What do you want?" The figure didn't move. Then slowly it tilted its head, just like Shadow used to when I said his name. But it wasn't confusion. It was mockery, like it knew me. Then it turned, and ran, fast, unnaturally fast. Into the woods. Gone. I chased it. Branches slapped my face. Thorns tore at my legs. I didn't care. I had to know. Had to end this. I followed the path through the trees, deeper and deeper, until I came to the old creek bed, dry now from the summer heat. And there, carved into the dirt, were paw prints. 2 sets. One going in, one going out. But something was wrong. One set looked normal, like Shadow's. The other was twisted, longer, like claws had dragged through the soil. And in the center, drawn into the earth with careful precision, were 3 words. "You took him." I froze. The wind howled through the trees, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt truly hunted. This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about possession, and the price of redemption. I turned back, ran home, and when I got there, Shadow was at the door, wagging his tail, waiting for me. But I looked into his eyes, and my blood ran cold, because something was missing. The light. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked every bolt, every latch, every chain. Shadow stood there, tail still wagging, tongue out like everything was fine. But I knew better. I stepped closer, real slow, watching. "Shadow," I whispered. His ears twitched. He cocked his head. But the eyes, God, those eyes. Still blank, still wrong. I reached for his collar, and he flinched. Shadow never flinched from me. Not once. Hey, it's me," I said, kneeling down. My voice was calm, but inside I was crumbling. I touched his neck, felt around the collar. There, on the underside, was something I hadn't seen before. Etched into the leather, burned in like a brand. Delta Omicron Lambda Omicron Phi Omicron Nu Omicron Sigma. I didn't know what it meant, but it wasn't English. It wasn't even letters I recognized. Looked Greek, old, and evil. "Where did this come from, boy?" I whispered. He just stared. Then, I swear to God, his mouth opened, and he spoke. Not in words, not like a person, but a sound came out. A growl so deep, so inhuman, it felt like it scraped the walls. It wasn't my dog. Not anymore. I backed away, stumbled, knocked over a lamp. The bulb shattered across the hardwood. Shadow didn't move, didn't chase me. He just sat there, watching, like he was waiting. I locked myself in the bathroom and dug through my phone for anything. Typed the word into a translator app. Hands shaking so bad I could barely tap the letters. Delta Omicron Lambda Omicron Phi Omicron Nu Omicron Sigma equals murderer. My stomach dropped. Who put that on his collar? Who or what was behind this? I called Kyle. Told him everything. The fake dog. The scratches. The symbol. He went quiet. Then he said, "You need to talk to her." Who? My grandma. She's weird. But she knows things. Old things. I didn't care how weird. I needed answers. So the next morning, I packed up Shadow, still silent, still off, and drove out to the edge of town, to the woods where Kyle's grandmother lived. Her cabin was buried in vines, half swallowed by time and trees. She opened the door before I knocked. "I've been expecting you," she said. Her eyes were cloudy, but she looked right at Shadow, and gasped. "You brought it here?" she hissed. "You let it follow you?" "It's my dog." I snapped. "No," she said, voice dropping. "It was." Then she turned, walked inside, and whispered, "Come in if you want to live." I hesitated at the threshold. Shadow stood beside me, still as stone. Not barking. Not whining. Just waiting. Kyle's grandma, Agnes, stood in the dark of the cabin, her silhouette thin and sharp like a knife against the candlelight behind her. "Come in," she said again. "But he stays outside." I looked down at Shadow. His tail flicked once, then stopped. Something inside me twisted. "I'm not leaving him." Agnes's eyes narrowed. "Then you've already lost." I stepped inside anyway. She didn't smile, didn't nod, just turned and disappeared into the room. The air inside the cabin felt thick, heavy with herbs and smoke. Dried plants hung from the rafters. Books lined every wall, ancient, leather-bound, titles in languages I couldn't even guess. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she said without turning. "The other one. The false shadow." I stopped in my tracks. "How do you know that?" "Because I've seen them before," she whispered. "And they never come alone." She motioned to the table. A single candle burned in the center. Next to it, an old wooden box sealed with rope and symbols carved deep into its surface. Agnes unwrapped it carefully and opened the lid. Inside was a photograph. Black and white. Faded. It showed a man, rail-thin, haunted eyes, kneeling beside a dog. Almost the same size, same shape as Shadow. The man looked terrified. "That man," she said, tapping the photo, "was my brother." She sat down, staring into the candle. "He came back from the war with eyes like thunder and silence in his bones. Said he'd seen something in the desert. A jackal. But not a real one. One that followed him. One that spoke." My skin prickled. "He said it knew things," she went on. "Things about him. Things it shouldn't. It lived in the shadows. It became his dog. And one night..." She swallowed hard. "It killed our parents." The flame flickered. Her voice broke. "He swore it wasn't him. Said the dog did it. But there was no dog when the police came. Just him. Covered in blood. Laughing." I was frozen. She looked up at me. "You think you saved that animal, Ethan. But you opened a door. And something else walked through. Outside, we heard it. A low growl. Followed by 3 sharp scratches against the wooden door. My blood turned to ice. "It's not just in your dog," she whispered. "It's inside you now." I staggered back. No, I'm not like. You brought it back with you. When you returned to this town. When you dug up the past." Then 3 more scratches. Only this time, they weren't at the door. They came from inside the cabin. Right behind me. I spun around, heart pounding so hard I thought it might tear through my chest. There was nothing behind me. Just shadows. Just silence. Then scratch. 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 From the wall. From inside the wall. Agnes didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just picked up a worn rosary from the table and began to mutter under her breath. "What the hell is this?" I shouted. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the far side of the room and opened a cupboard. Inside chalk. Salt. A vial of thick black liquid that looked like oil, but shimmered like blood. She tossed the chalk to me. "Draw a circle," she said. "Now." I didn't ask questions. I knelt and started sketching on the wooden floor. My hands were trembling so bad the lines came out crooked. Inside it. Stand inside the circle. I obeyed. She stepped into her own. Shadow, still outside the cabin, started barking, wild, frantic, like he was trying to warn me. Then the door burst open. But it wasn't Shadow standing there. It was him. The copy. The fake. The thing. His mouth hung open too wide. Teeth too sharp. His eyes, those familiar, gentle eyes, were black now. Bottomless. And he spoke. Ethan. My name. Twisted into something demonic. I know what you did. Agnes shouted something in a language I didn't recognize and hurled the black liquid at him. It sizzled as it hit the floor near his paws. Smoke curled up, thick and acrid. He didn't scream. He laughed. It was the most broken, bone-deep laugh I've ever heard. Like it came from under the ground. You can't hide in circles, he said. And then he began to shift. Bones cracking. Limbs stretching. He grew taller. Broader. And suddenly he wasn't a dog anymore. He was Josh. My brother. Or a twisted reflection of him. The same face I saw in the coffin. But smiling. Agnes gasped. He's using your guilt? He's wearing your grief. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Josh's face looked at me. You left me, Ethan, it said, stepping closer. You ran. You lived. And I died. No, I whispered. This isn't real. You want me to be real, it sneered. You need me to be real. It stepped toward the edge of the circle. You called me. You fed me. You let me in. And then I cracked. I didn't mean to. I shouted. It was an accident. I've hated myself every single day since. The thing stopped. Smiled. And said, good. Then it lunged. Straight at me. Straight through the circle. But something stopped it. Shadow. The real one. He flew in through the open door, snarling, slamming into the creature with the fury I didn't know he had left in him. They tumbled across the floor, snapping, growling, claws and teeth and blood. Then, light. From the circle. From the chalk. From the floor. A blinding, burning flash. And then, silence. Smoke. Agnes coughing. Me on my knees. And in the center of the room. Shadow. Breathing. Alone. The copy was gone. Vanished. Banished. And Shadow, my shadow, limped to me and rested his head in my lap. His eyes were clear again. He came back to me. He chose me. Agnes sat back in her chair, pale and trembling. The smoke curled toward the rafters, rising like ghosts leaving the room. Shadow whimpered softly and pressed closer to my chest. His fur was wet with blood, not his, thank God, but the weight of what just happened was crushing us both. You need to leave, Agnes said. Her voice was raspier now. Smaller. This place won't hold it back forever. I thought you said it was gone, I murmured. She shook her head. Not gone. Not really. Things like that, they live off memory. Off guilt? You pushed it back. But it'll keep hunting. Keep watching. Until you stop feeding it. I stared at her, confused. What does that even mean? Agnes stood up slowly, like her bones might crack. She moved toward me and pointed at my chest. It means you have to let go, Ethan. Of Josh. Of what happened. Of the hate you've carried for yourself. That's how it survives through your pain. I wanted to argue. Scream. Curse at the universe. But deep down, I knew she was right. I'd been dragging Josh's death behind me like a corpse for 10 years. Feeding that thing with every bottle I drank, every relationship I destroyed, every time I looked in the mirror and saw a killer instead of a brother. I don't know how, I whispered. She reached out and touched my cheek. It was the softest thing I'd felt in years. You just did. I carried Shadow back to the truck. The sun was rising now, slow and golden, cutting through the mist like a promise. As I buckled him into the passenger seat, I looked into his eyes. And for the first time in days, I saw him again. Not a shadow. Not a monster. Just my dog. Strong. Loyal. Mine. We drove. No destination. No plan. Just away. From the cabin. From Zeke. From the rot that had lived in me for far too long. I thought about Josh. About the last words I said to him. I'll be right behind you. But I never was. I let him drive drunk. I let him talk me into it. I watched him walk out that door and I didn't stop him. And I've hated myself every day since. But now I had Shadow. And he didn't just pull me out of the trailer. He pulled me out of hell. The further we drove, the lighter I felt. Like something had peeled itself off my back and stayed behind in those woods. I didn't know where we were going yet. But for once I wasn't afraid of the road. Because I wasn't walking it alone. Not anymore. 2 days passed. Then 4. Shadow healed slowly. Slept a lot. 8 more. Wagged his tail when I whistled, just a little flick, but it was enough to make me cry the first time. We camped just outside Sedona, Arizona. under red rocks and orange skies that looked like they were painted with fire. It felt ancient out there. Cleansing. Like the land itself could bleed the poison out of your soul. I left my phone turned off. No news. No updates. Just the wind, shadow, and the sound of my own breathing. But peace is a fragile thing. And it never lasts. On the 6th night, I woke up to Shadow barking. Snarling. He was outside the tent. I scrambled out, heart in my throat. He was standing 10 feet away, hackles raised, facing the tree line. A shape stood there. No. Not a shape. A person. Barefoot. Hair hanging over their face. Skin gray and cracked like desert clay. They didn't move. Didn't blink. Just whispered something I couldn't hear over the wind. Then they lifted a hand. And pointed right at me. Shadow lunged. I grabbed his collar and held tight, but he was shaking, muscles tensed like a loaded gun. The figure tilted its head. And vanished. Gone. Just like that. I stood there for a long time, staring into the dark, the cold crawling up my spine like a disease. That night, I didn't sleep. Next morning, I checked Shadow's collar again. The symbol Agnes warned me about Delta Omicron Lambda Omicron Phi Omicron to Omicron Sigma was gone. Burned out. As if it had never been there. But in its place, a single mark. Carved into the leather by something not human. A perfect circle. And inside it, an eye. Watching. I stared at it for what felt like forever. It wasn't over. Agnes had said it lived off guilt. And mine was still alive and well. I thought I pushed it back. But I realized something terrifying. Maybe I didn't just let it in. Maybe I needed it. Maybe the pain had become my identity. And now that I was trying to heal, it was fighting back. Harder. Stronger. Smarter. Shadow was pacing the edge of the campsite now. Watching the tree line. And I knew deep in my gut, whatever this thing was, it was still coming. But this time I'd be ready. I wasn't running anymore. Neither was Shadow. We'd face it. Together. Even if it meant going straight into hell to finish what we started. We drove through the night. No music. No talking. Just the hum of the engine and the sharp click of Shadow's claws on the dashboard every time we hit a bump. I didn't know where we were going. But Shadow did. He kept glancing at the road signs like he could read them. Like he was guiding me. And I followed. Because something in me deep, primal, knew this was the only way to end it. At dawn, we pulled into a stretch of desert land so flat and empty it looked like God forgot to finish it. Nothing but red dirt, dead brush, and distant silhouettes of jagged rocks. And then I saw it. A building. No, a ruin. Half buried, windows shattered, walls crumbling like they'd been eaten from the inside. There was no road leading to it. No sign it was ever part of anything human. Shadow jumped out of the truck before I even killed the engine. He sprinted toward it. No hesitation. Like he knew this place. I ran after him, boots sinking into the soft earth, breath ragged in my throat. The closer I got, the colder it felt. Like the sun couldn't touch this place. Inside, it was worse. Symbols burned into the floor. Bones, small ones, scattered in corners. The air smelled like copper and mold and old screams. And in the center of the room, a chair. Wooden. Splintered. And strapped to it. Me. I stopped cold. It was me. Same face. Same clothes. Same scar on my eyebrow from when Josh dared me to jump the fence as a kid. He looked up. Smiled. I've been waiting. My heart pounded in my ears. My stomach twisted into knots. What the hell is this? I whispered. The copy didn't move. You think you're free? You think healing means escaping? He stood, unbuckled the straps, stepped toward me. Shadow snarled. The thing didn't flinch. I'm the version of you that never left, he said. The one who stayed in that truck. In that guilt? In that night? I am your grief. He opened his hands, blood on the palms. And you fed me. For 10 years. I shook my head. You're not real. I'm more real than you are, he spat. You built me. Loved me. Needed me. He turned to Shadow. And now I'm going to take him back. Shadow stepped forward, growling, ready to rip the world apart. But the thing didn't stop. I'm not just in your head, Ethan, he said. I'm in him. And suddenly Shadow froze. Mid-lunge. Stopped like time had snapped. Eyes wide. Chest trembling. He whimpered. And then he barked. Once. Twice. But it wasn't fear. It was defiance. His tail rose. His body tensed. And then, in one final burst of fury, he leapt. Teeth into throat. Both of them crashed to the floor. Snarls. Screams. A storm of violence. I rushed forward, but a shockwave hit me like a freight train, throwing me back against the wall. Light exploded from the center of the room. Not white. Not red. But black. so dark it devoured the color around it. And inside that darkness, I saw everything. Josh's face, the crash, the blood, my sobbing mother, the wreckage of the trailer, the bottom of every bottle, the empty nights, and Shadow. Always Shadow. Never leaving. Never judging. Only loving. Even when I couldn't love myself. Then silence. The darkness sucked in on itself like a dying star. Gone. And in the middle of the room, one body. Motionless. I crawled to it. No. No. No, please. It was Shadow. Eyes closed. Still. But then, his chest rose. Once. Twice. And he opened his eyes. Clear. Bright. Him. He was back. The darkness was gone. The monster was gone. And all that remained was us. I held him like he was made of glass. My hands were shaking, my heart was in pieces, and my face was soaked in tears I didn't remember letting fall. But Shadow was breathing. Alive. Real. His body was weak, trembling, his fur scorched at the edges, but when he licked my hand, slow and soft, I knew. He had come back from somewhere no soul should ever return from. I whispered to him over and over like a prayer. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. We lay there together on the cold dirt floor of that ruined place until the sun started bleeding through the cracks in the broken walls. I carried him to the truck. My legs were rubber. My ribs screamed with every breath. But I didn't care. We were leaving this place. For good. As we drove, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. And in the doorway of that cursed ruin, I swear I saw myself again. Not the monster. Just a boy. The version of me that never got to say goodbye. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. He just faded into the dust like a bad dream finally letting go. We didn't go back to Benton. Didn't go back to the trailer. The pain. The letters. The past. We drove west. Found a town with no name. Just quiet streets, old diners, and sun that didn't hurt to look at. I found a little cabin to rent by a lake. Nothing fancy. But it had a porch big enough for two. Shadow took to it fast. He'd limp out there every morning and sit like a king, nose in the wind, tail thumping once or twice at passing ducks. He still had scars. So did I. But for the first time in forever, we weren't bleeding from them. We were just living with them. Every night I sat on the steps beside him. And I told him things I'd never told another soul. About Josh. About guilt. About wanting to die and being too scared to do it. And every time he'd just rest his head against my leg. Like he was saying, I know. I was there. And I still chose you. That's what dogs do, isn't it? They forgive what we can't. They stay when we run. They see through every ugly, broken part of us and love us anyway. One morning, a kid came by the cabin. Lost. Scared. Maybe 10 years old. Said he ran away from his foster home. Shadow walked right up to him, tail wagging. The kid dropped to his knees and hugged him like he'd known him forever. I gave the kid water. A sandwich. Called the sheriff to help him get somewhere safe. Before they left, he looked at me and said, "He's magic." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "He really is." And when they drove off, Shadow sat down beside me, just like always. And I whispered, "You saved me, buddy." He looked up, eyes full of peace. And for the first time in my life, I believed I was worth saving. Spring melted into summer. The trees turned green. The lake warmed. The porch became our sanctuary. Shadow walked with a limp now, but he still chased butterflies like he didn't care about the pain. And I watched him every day like I was trying to memorize the shape of joy. Because I knew. Time was catching up. One night, I woke up to him whimpering. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a soft, tired sound from the corner of the room where he liked to sleep. I rushed to him, heart in my throat. He looked up at me. His eyes still full of trust. Still full of love. But I saw it. The flicker. The fade. He tried to lift his head like he didn't want to worry me. Like he was more concerned about me than himself. God. Even at the end, he was the strong one. I laid down beside him on the floor, stroking his fur, whispering every good memory I could dig out of my broken, healing heart. "Remember Utah?" I said. "When you wouldn't stop digging up my socks." His tail moved. Barely. But it moved. "Remember the time you pulled me out of that bar fight? Like you knew I was gonna get hurt?" I felt his breathing slow. But steady. Still listening. "Remember that day in the woods?" My voice cracked. "When you came for me. When you saved me from myself." A tear hit his nose. And he licked it away. I lost it then. I sobbed like I hadn't sobbed since the night Josh died. Like something was being ripped out of me again. Only this time. I wasn't falling apart. I was letting go. I held him until sunrise. until the warmth touched his fur one last time. And then he stopped breathing. No noise. No drama. Just peace. Just a silence so gentle it felt like a thank you. I buried him by the lake, under the biggest oak tree on the shore. Built a marker with my bare hands. Carved it myself. Shadow. He saved me. Again. And again. And again. People stopped by sometimes. Fishermen. Hikers. The mailman. They'd always stop and stare at the grave. Ask questions. I'd tell them the story. Every dark piece. Every miracle. And every single one of them said the same thing. Sounds like he was more than a dog. Yeah. He was. He was my lifeline. My confessor. My last shot at redemption. And I took it. Because of him. Now I walk the lake every morning. Same path. Same tree. And sometimes. Just sometimes. I swear I hear his paws behind me. Soft. Steady. Loyal. Forever. People say grief gets lighter with time. They're wrong. It doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger. Or maybe you just get used to the weight. Learn how to carry it without letting it crush you. I still wake up some mornings and reach for him. Still pour a second bowl of food out of habit. Still pause before opening the door, half expecting him to rush past me, tongue out, eyes sparkling. But he's not there. And that's okay. Because grief, it means something mattered. And shadow mattered. To me. To my story. To the man I finally became. Sometimes I think about how close I came to ending it all. All those years ago. Sitting in that trailer with a bottle and a gun and a list of reasons to disappear. And then this ragged, broken dog shows up out of nowhere. Looking worse than I felt. And instead of running, he stayed. He chose me. A man no one else had. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that choice. A year passed. Then another. I stayed in that lakeside cabin longer than I expected. Fixed the roof. Built a garden. Painted the porch. I even adopted again. A mutt from the shelter. 3 legs. Blind in one eye. Looks like he got into a fight with a lawnmower and won. His name's Rusty. He's no shadow. But he doesn't have to be. He's his own story. And he's helping me write a new one. People ask if it hurts to get another dog after losing one like Shadow. And I tell them yes. Yes, it hurts. But pain is just proof that love existed. And I wouldn't trade that pain for anything. Sometimes at night, Rusty curls up on the bed and snores like a chainsaw. I'll laugh and whisper, Shadow would have hated you. And I like to think, wherever he is, he's listening. Tail wagging. Waiting. And proud. Because I made it. I lived. I chose life. Just like he chose me. Last month I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just like the first one all those years ago, the one that nearly broke me. But this one, it was different. Inside was a single page. The ink shaky, smudged at the corners. Like someone had cried while writing it. It read. I heard what happened. About the dog. About Zeke. About everything. I thought you should know I don't hate you anymore. I don't even think I ever really did. I just didn't know where else to put the pain. Josh loved you, Ethan. He always did. He never blamed you. He want you to stop blaming yourself. Maybe it's time we both let him go. No name at the bottom. But I knew. Zeke. Somewhere out there he survived. Scarred. Changed. Haunted like me. But maybe, just maybe, he was healing too. I sat on the porch for hours after reading it, Rusty snoring beside me, wind rolling off the lake like a lullaby. And I cried. Not the sharp, broken kind. Not the kind that burns. This time it felt soft. Clean. Like something being released. Let go. The next morning I hiked back to Shadow's grave. Sat under the oak tree and read the letter out loud. Then I placed it at the base of the marker, weighed down with a smooth river stone. I did it, buddy, I whispered. I made it. We made it. Rusty sat beside me, cocking his head like he could hear him too. Like he understood. The wind picked up, brushing through the leaves above, and for a moment I could have sworn I heard the jingle of a collar in the distance. Not loud. Not spooky. Just familiar. Comforting. I didn't turn. Didn't have to. I knew he was there. Still watching. Still waiting. Still walking beside me even if my eyes couldn't see it anymore. Because love like that? It doesn't die. It becomes part of your bones. Your breath. Your heartbeat. It becomes the reason you wake up. The reason you keep going. And the reason you'll never walk alone again. I built a bench by the lake. Took me 3 weekends, 2 splinters, and more than a few curse words. But when it was done, I carved one word into the backrest. Shadow. That's where I sit now. Every morning. With a cup of black coffee. With Rusty at my feet. With the sun climbing out of the water like it's been reborn. I don't look back much anymore. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've finally made peace with what's behind me. Josh. Zeke. The guilt. The darkness that nearly swallowed me whole. And Shadow. He's not behind me at all. He's here. In the way I smile when Rusty trips over his own feet and pretends he meant to do it. In the way I stop strangers to pet their dogs like we've known each other forever. In the way I reach out when someone else is hurting because I know what it means to feel alone and I know how much one act of kindness can change a life. He taught me that. Not with words, but with loyalty. With presence. With that quiet, stubborn, unwavering kind of love that doesn't demand anything in return. Just to be near you. To walk beside you. To stay. And when my time comes, whenever that may be, I hope I go the way he did. Peaceful. With love still clinging to my soul. And if there's something after this, if there's a field or a river or a porch somewhere past the veil, I hope I see him there. Tail wagging. Tongue out. Eyes bright. And I hope he knows. He didn't just save my life. He gave it back to me. And I've lived every damn day since trying to make it worth the rescue. Because once upon a time, when I was drowning in darkness, a half-dead dog climbed into my world and pulled me back into the light. That was Shadow, my dog, my guardian, my second chance, my best friend, forever.